All right, what's the worst that could happen to you if you don't pay your old federal student loans? Garnishment, something on your credit report. Well, how about being arrested by the U.S. Marshals office?
Yeah, you don't expect that, but Isaiah Carey is live with a man who experienced just that over a $1,500 student loan.
Topkats Pride, bringing to you the unusual but factual and oftentimes ignored and controversial wild news, keeping you in the know while you're on the go. And now, your wild news reporter, Q. Pate.
Isaiah?
Well, Don and Melinda, I still can't believe this one, but it is just mind-blowing. This is a story that will likely outrage you and leave you wondering, why are the resources of the federal government being used this way? Joining me live is Paul Aker. He had a student loan debt from 1987. The loan was $1,500. Last Thursday, 7 people in combat gear with automatic weapons showed up at his home and took him to jail for a 29-year-old student loan. Those people were U.S. Marshals, Deputy U.S. Marshals right here in Houston. Also joining us is U.S. Congressman Gene Green. Paul, when these people arrived at your front door, what did you think? There is a U.S. Marshal Service knocking on your door for a $1,500 student loan.
I was wondering, why are you here? I'm home, I haven't done anything, and why are the Marshals knocking on my door? It's amazing.
Now, you were arrested, you were in shackles, you were in handcuffs, and where did they take you?
They took me downtown to the federal court, where they put me in a 4x4 cell for about an hour, and then an hour later I was taken before a judge surrounded by 7 marshals.
For a payment agreement?
For a payment
All
agreement.
of that for a payment agreement?
Absolutely, absolutely. It was just totally mind-boggling. I just couldn't believe that I'm standing before the court with no rights read to me, no legal representation, and I'm being told that I owe $1,500 and just couldn't believe it.
Congressman Gene Green, what do you make of this?
Well, there's bound to be a better way to collect on a student loan debt that's so old. Now, again, the interest is accrued on it, but still, using 7 U.S. Marshals, you didn't receive any kind of notice, no certified mail, nobody coming out and saying this is the debt you owe.
Nothing in 30 years, almost 30 years.
You know, our federal resources, our U.S. Marshals and the federal court system are being used, I think, by the private sector. A few years ago, Congress allowed the private sector to contract for student loan collections. And so you have these private companies who are doing this. You told me that it wasn't a U.S. attorney that was there. It was actually a private attorney standing in the place of the U.S.
bill
attorney.
collector.
A bill collector.
We're out of time, guys. I want to thank you guys for coming on. But once again, we want to remind the public, I was told by sources with the U.S. Marshal Service, they have 1,200 to 1,500 more arrests right here in our community that they will make for old student loan debt.
On February 11th, 2016, 7 U.S. federal marshals with automatic weapons arrested Paul Aker at his home in Houston, Texas, over an unpaid $1,500 student loan dating back to 1987. Aker, 48 years old, said, "They grabbed me, they threw me down." Aker, who says he had received no advance warning, told the news press, "I say, what is this all about? They say, shut up, you know what this is all about." The marshals handcuffed Aker, put him in the back of a truck, and placed him in a cell in the federal building in downtown Houston, Texas. Later, he was brought to the federal court. The prosecuting attorney, he claims, was a collection agency lawyer. Aker was forced to pay $5,700 for the loan, including interest, as well as nearly $1,300 to cover the cost of his arrest. He was told that if he did not pay the total amount by March 1st, he would be arrested again. He says he was never read his rights during the entire ordeal. Now, Texas Congressman Gene Green, first name spelled Gene, told the press that the federal government is now using private debt collectors to pursue people who owe student loans. The debt collectors and their lawyers are obtaining judgments in federal court and requesting that judges use the U.S. Federal Marshals Service to arrest those that are outstanding. The mainstream media reports, citing a source within the U.S. Marshals office in Houston, they say marshals are planning to serve between 1,200 and 1,500 warrants to people who have failed to repay their federal student loans. Student debt is a massive industry in the United States. By the end of the year 2014, some 43.3 million Americans had student loans totaling $1.3 trillion, making student loans the biggest non-mortgage household debt in the country. And that ranks above auto-related and credit card debt. The government plays an active role in lending this money and pockets roughly $10 billion per year in profit from the business. And lastly, according to the U.S. Federal Reserve, 4.8 million Americans are now in default, meaning that they are more than 9 months behind in their payments. Unlike most loans, student loans cannot be discharged under bankruptcy, and the government can garnish salaries, social security benefits, and tax refunds in order to collect. Failure to make payments is not a criminal offense, and Congress officially abolished debtors' prisons in the U.S. in 1833. But the reality of 21st century America is that low-income people who are unable to pay their debts, including traffic tickets and other fines, increasingly end up in jail. So, I guess with this situation, it is fair to say, although I say that carefully, and I wouldn't say that it is exactly accurate, but I am using the information that is provided here to deduce that there is no statute of limitations on how long a student who gets a loan to go to school from the federal government. I guess it's okay to say that there's no statute of limitations. For those who may be interested, and for those who are concerned about this information, I would ask for you to research the possible statute of limitations for a federal loan. Because as you can see, apparently the federal government can come back and do their best to collect the funds that were even loaned almost 30 years ago. His loan had been outstanding for 29 years, and I can only surmise that maybe, just maybe, there is a statute of limitations that I can't find through my research. That's why I'm also asking you to research this information, because without being a lawyer, it's a bit more difficult to find many of the statutes without days, 8-hour days of research. So maybe this is why the U.S. Federal Marshals came in so aggressively, so unannounced, to arrest Mr. Aker, because in 30 years, which would have been one more year after he was arrested, there may be a statute of limitations for the federal government to collect. Not that that means so much, however, because apparently, if we go according to what Mr. Aker said when he was arrested, he said that he was never read his rights. So that is a breach right there of the Bill of Rights, because you're supposed to be, all U.S. citizens are supposed to be, read their rights. It is called Miranda rights. So I don't know whether or not suggesting that there being a statute of limitations really means anything. But at the very least, if those laws, that statute or those statutes are on the books, then at least you and your legal representative will be able to have a platform of stability to stand on. In the information description box will be the link to this article, and I would like to ask you to research the many more U.S. citizens around the nation that have been arrested since this article first came out back in 2016. There have been many more U.S. citizens that have been arrested, and I want to give you the heads up about it as well, because you should definitely look into this information, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for your children, other family members and friends, and for the very least to educate yourself and make yourself familiar with what's actually going on. And please do not think just because there is a man of color featured in this news report that white people are not also vulnerable to this collection of the federal government, as well as everyone in between. For the Topkats Rebel Connection and the Topkats Pride, my name is Ph.Ds. Thank you for stopping by.